We're recording.
Meeting will come to order. I apologize that we're a few minutes late. We're going to go through the first 5 items and the consent calendar, and then we're going to have a closed session, then we're going to go to the open items, and then we're going to have another closed session. Item number 1 is opening remarks by me, and I have none. So item 1A, roll call. Barbara.
We have Commissioners Berard, Funderburk, Levine, and Noonan present.
Thank you. 1B, on Channel 35, this proceeding is broadcast on Channel 35. The exact broadcast times can be found by contacting Channel 35. Agenda item 2, the report and/or briefing by the General Manager.
Thank you, President Levine. There we go. A couple of items. First, there have been a number of calls and a few things that have come to certainly my attention. I think some of the commissioners have heard, and with regard to our customer bills. And this is kind of one of the pieces of the gears as we go through in changing over from a 40-year-old customer information system to our new system. And in certain circumstances, we have customers who have received bills that are extraordinarily large and dismaying to them, and understandably so. There've also been some circumstances where, by virtue of those changes and past information on the old system that didn't fully make it through to the new system, that there's been some notices with respect to customers being given notice that they're going to be disconnected. Now, in some cases, those are actual, but in several there are not. We have given more explanation to our customer service representatives to deal with those calls and questions. We are working with our customers in those circumstances. Tends to have happened in a circumstance where their meters were changed during the period of time that we were making the changeover. We have had some meter change outs. Those have been some of the problem areas that we've had with that. I know it's troublesome and dismaying to our customers. I just want to make you all aware and others aware that we are aware of the problems. We're working through that. It is a relatively small percentage of our customers. It has, as a result, increased our phone wait times, which is, of course, the exact opposite of what we're trying to do. And for some of those customers who have come into our customer service center, there have been some longer lines. We put more people on the desks to cover that, as well at our in-person customer service centers. This will sort itself out. It could take a couple of months to get through that. The one thing being, once we fix these issues on a customer-by-customer basis, it fixes that problem. It's not going to come up and creep up again on them. I ask the forbearance of our customers. I understand they're concerned about it. There has, at the same time, in some cases, you'll find some customers who will probably say, well, my bill's a little bit higher. Well, our bills are a little bit higher on the water side, because each quarter we do an adjustment with respect to our purchased water. As we've discussed before this board before, we have we're on the second of 2 very dry years that fell off of an incredibly wet year. So we have been increasing the purchased water price, which is an automatic pass-through because we have to provide water to our customers. And that just hit them in their bills in this last quarter, so there was a jump up on that. If you have a slight increase in your bill and it's attributable to water, it's not a customer service implementation system issue. It is just the water matter. But for those who are seeing extraordinarily higher levels on your bills, it almost likely is an error. It is likely attributable to this changeover in the system, and we will get it fixed, and people will not be disconnected over that problem, and they will not be expected to pay a bill that's on account of an error out of that temporary change in our system. So I just want to make sure people are aware of that.
That's very much appreciated, and I'm pleased that you made that announcement.
Now, one other thing, just as a point, I wanted to note that we've had several in the last couple of days, 2 very notable, enjoyable events, some of which you have mementos of commissioners on your desk here. day before yesterday, we had a reenactment of the first delivery of water down the Los Angeles Aqueduct in recognition of the centennial anniversary of the LA Aqueduct. It was really a memorable event. It's been captured on video, so we'll at some point in time, I think, be able to show it to those who weren't able to be there. It's been a really great recognition of a century of accomplishment, and at the same time a recognition that the Owens Valley and the Owens River and the LA Aqueduct is a smaller portion of our water than it's been in the past, still an increasingly important one. And I think the recognition of what the LA Aqueduct did to create the city of Los Angeles as we know it today is something that's noteworthy and important. Last night we also had an event, because it happens to also be the centennial of the start of the creation of the National History Museum of Los Angeles. So there was a joint event last night in recognizing that as well. We have and showed last night at that event a video. It's about a 10-minute video. We're aware of some time constraints we have today. If we have time at the end of our meeting, we're going to try to show you that video, because I think it's really a good explanation of what the LA Aqueduct was and how important it was to us, what it means in the future, and how we're kind of changing our views of water and where we get our incremental water supplies and needs as we go forward. So I'm hopeful we'll have time at the end of the meeting to show that for you. You have before you a copy of the Intake magazine, which is a periodic journal that we create here within the department, dedicated to that. Has a lot of great information in that. There are some anniversary pins there. And similar to when water was, there was a bottle of water, more than one, but a bottle of water that's in an exhibit in the Natural History Museum from the first water that was taken out of that. We now have a centennial of that. Please don't drink it. Not that it's not bad, but it actually might have some value someday. Right now, I'm told that the entire value of all these things are below the gift limit. It's not reportable. I can't vouch for that maybe 100 years from now. So I'm hopeful that we'll do that. It's not very often that we as a department celebrate something. This is a celebration, in my view, not just of what we've done from the water system, but what we as a department have done overall, and taking pride into a century of service to the city of Los Angeles. And I'm very proud that we're able to enjoy this, and hopefully we'll have time to show that video, because I think it's an impressive piece of work. Thank you. And that's at the end of my report.
Thank you very much. We are all proud of this. If we don't have time today to show the video, we'll find a time to do it. Hopefully we will have time today, and if we don't, we'll do it at another time. And I should note, the reason that the special meeting is being held today rather than Tuesday was to accommodate the various centennial events that were occurring on Tuesday and Wednesday. Public comment. Comments from or requests from commissioners. Do any commissioners have comments or requests to make at this time on the agenda?
Thank you.
Commissioner Noonan.
Well, I had the opportunity to partake in a 2-day tour of the department's power and water operations along the LA Aqueduct and throughout Owens Valley. And I want to thank Fred Barker and the team who put this tour together. It was an invaluable education. And I want to commend the department for the renewable projects that are underway and anticipated. It was a time very well spent, and I highly recommend to the other members of this board to consider taking this tour. I also want to thank the department for proactively responding to this board's requests. I met with Gwendolyn Williams about bettering our procurement process, and I'm very excited about the strategies that she discussed with me, which will be presented to the board. I think that we're headed in the right direction. And I also would like to thank Aaron Benjamin and his team for meeting with me as I requested to discuss pole replacements and infrastructure. And after seeing the due diligence that's been undertaken, I think that that information should be shared with the board as well. You'll see that it's going to be a very, very top priority for the department to really put a lot of effort and resources to dealing with these infrastructure matters. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Parad.
Yes, thank you. I have just a short thing. I spoke to their general manager this morning about the billing snafus, and particularly of all the calls that I've been getting in the Valley, and particularly the Northeast Valley. And I just want to say thank you to Ron for a very timely update, and I think that's very much appreciated by the ratepayers. I appreciate your giving us the update on that.
Yeah, I had the opportunity to attend a number of the aqueduct, not a number, a few of the aqueduct celebrations, and I want to, it's not contact with the senior staff of DWP, but I want to tip my hat to the workers of DWP, the ones who are not in senior management positions that are making the cogs and wheels go of this institution, because I think that, they deserve occasional recognition, and I'd just like to recognize them for the work that they do.
Thank you.
Public comment.
Okay, I do not have any cards for item number 4.
No cards. Okay. On the consent agenda.
The
Ratepayer advocate, I don't know whether they're...
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize.
That's all right.
Potential comments by the ratepayer advocate.
I was prepared to be passed over last board meeting, but not this one.
Never again.
Please don't be concerned. I can speak up, but I really wanted to take the opportunity to say something about the role of the office at this juncture now that the board is more organized and underway with itself. And it seems like now is the opportune moment for me to read from you very briefly from the Charter and the Enabling Ordinance, because I'd like to make a few comments about that. The Charter, as you may already be familiar, has us providing public independent analysis of department actions as they relate to water and electricity rates. And the ordinance itself that implements says, as to the mission of the OPA, which I will not read the whole thing, that OPA shall provide information and make recommendations to the board to assure the DWP's transparency and accountability to its customers and reasonableness of its policies and rates. And also, with respect to reporting obligations, the OPA shall provide reports to the board and the public on the reasonableness of rate actions and any modifications to them, have the discretion to make recommendations to the board and the public on ways to improve the reasonableness and transparency of DWP policies and rates. And so with that, I would just like to note that Dr. Pickle was installed at February 14th of 2012. The office is still very new in terms of its functioning with the board, and we now have a reconstituted board. So I want to specifically extend the invitation to each of you to call our office should you have any suggestions on how we can better provide you the analysis that would be meaningful to you in conducting our independent review and making recommendations to you. We take calls from everyone else, so it seems to me only fair we should take calls from you. And it will actually help us better meet your expectations if we do have those calls. So whether it's an agenda item or something off the agenda or a customer complaint, we, because of the billing system, are getting more customer complaint calls now, and I just want to commend the Assistant General Manager, Sharon Grove, for beginning the task of working closely with our office as we deal with our efforts to both inform the public of how to get the resolution they need and understand the performance issues associated with customer service and be available to advise on the progress that they're making. So she has been exceptionally glad to have us involved and is fully cooperating. I so appreciate that.
Thank you very much. I am sure we will all take you up on your offer. Okay, we'll move to the consent agenda. Let me just mention procedurally that beyond the consent agenda, we're going to, as I indicated, go into closed session shortly after the consent agenda is completed. We're going to accelerate item 27. Do you want that before the closed session or after?
No, afterwards.
Okay. And we're going to have to take item number 19 off the agenda until it is heard in closed session. So 19 will be a closed session item, and then it will be returned to open session. On the consent agenda, are there, between items 6 and 17, are there any items that any commissioners would like removed from the consent agenda?
I have questions about items number 14 and 15.
Okay, 14 and 15 will be removed from the consent agenda,
Item 16.
as will item 16.
And, Mr. President, I think if I could suggest that item 17 be taken off the consent for a
Yes.
brief discussion and open as well.
Yes, yes. So we are removing from the consent agenda items 14, 15, 16, and 17. That leaves items 6 through 13. All right, does anybody wish to remove any of those items? Do I hear a motion approving items 6 through 13?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Those items are passed, approved. Okay, we will now go into closed session, and we will return to open session after the first closed session is. Go ahead, Mr.
Yeah, I want to be specific on what we're going to discuss
Please
in closed
do.
session. It would be items 30A4, 30B1, and 30C. And then the board shall publicly report any action taken in closed session and the vote or abstention of every member present thereon in accordance with Section 54.957.1 of the California Government Code.
Thank you. So we'll take a moment.
Well, actually, Mr. President, I think it might, so that we don't have to shut everything down and back, I think if we could just take closed session back in the
In another-
in the boardroom,
conference room. Okay.
the board conference room, it probably would be a little easier for our
Good.
audiovisual folks, and we could
Good.
get it done quicker.
Good. Okay, so we'll suspend the open session until this closed session has occurred, and then we'll return. A quorum having returned, we will resume. Just for those of you who are waiting for particular items, let me let you know the sequence. We're going to take care of the items that were pulled off of the consent calendar first. We're then going to accelerate item number 27, and then we're going to go to the remainder of the agenda in the order that it's listed.
Mr. President, I think prior to 27, we have a quick item 17, we're going to do before 27. Sorry.
That's one of the ones he mentioned that was pulled off.
That was on the consent calendar. So
And we pulled.
So we pulled it. So that'll be one of the items that we're.
There you go. You're right all along. Who am I to question?
Surprise. Happens once in a while. Okay, item number 14, System Support, Memorandum of Understanding with Los Angeles Department of Water, Department of Public Works and Bureau of Engineering, MOU with the Bureau of Engineering.
Hi,
Who
good morning.
pulled this off?
I did.
Commissioner Noonan, do you want to raise whatever concerns you have?
Sure, sure.
And if you could introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Cliff Eng, Assistant Director of IT.
Okay, thank you. I have a few questions. I understand that we entered into a cooperative purchase agreement in 2010. I'd like to understand why we're renewing the system. Have we looked at competitive software? I also was confused in that part of the request states that by paying this annual fee, we're given unlimited quantities, maintenance, and access to the software. However, that's refuted in other areas where it says that the expense request is based on estimates provided by Water and Power Systems for anticipated licensing needs. So is this an unlimited access? Can you elaborate on that? I feel like there's a lot of contradiction in the data here.
Okay, so the city standardized on using ESRI software for their geographic information systems. And so they did that back in 2010. They entered into what's called an enterprise license agreement. And that enterprise license agreement has a list of products on there for which we are allowed to deploy in an unlimited manner there. That initial enterprise license agreement was expiring this past June. And what happens is when the enterprise license agreement expires, then you have a choice of either extending another enterprise license agreement or go on regular maintenance for those software products so you can continue to get support and updates to the software. We use that software within both the water system and within the power system. The city uses it for a lot of their Bureau of Engineering. They're responsible for the land base for the city. They use it, and we share data with the Bureau of Engineering. And so it's widely used throughout the city as one of the standard software used throughout the city. With regards to your question of can we use it in an unlimited manner, what we tried to show within the report is why we believe this is advantageous for this department to participate in, continue to participate in the enterprise license agreement. What we anticipate is that the power system is going to have to replace the software they use to manage their electric model. The software products in here is one component of the new electric model that they're planning to implement. And when we estimated the number of new licenses that they were going to need for that project and the cost that it was going to be, it came out to be around $1.7 million. And so we're going to be paying about $1.2 million over the next 3 years for what would have, if we had to pay for those licenses new, it would have been $1.7 million. Plus, we would have had to continue to pay the $200,000 annual maintenance software and support. So, in that sense, it would have been about $2.3 million in total we would have expected to be paying over the next 3 years if we don't enter into this agreement.
I think that information would have been helpful, so in the future, in the agenda items, just to provide some of that background and other options that were considered, because I felt that a lot of that data was missing, and I appreciate the clarification as to how the estimates are based.
Okay, sure.
Other questions, concerns? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second? Those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? It's approved. Thank you very much. Item 15, Environment and Efficiency, Amendment Number 1 to Agreement Number 47063-2 with MWH Americas, Inc., and Amendment Number 1 to Agreement 47064-2 with ESA Planning and Environmental Services for professional environmental services for environmental assistance and air quality services. Commissioner Noonan, was that this one was yours also?
Thank you.
If you would introduce yourselves.
Mark Solacek, Environment and Efficiency.
Charles Holloway, Environmental Affairs.
I think it'd be helpful to the board, but primarily the ratepayers, if you could elaborate about why this additional work was unanticipated. Many times were brought requests for additional fundings on things that we had already approved. So if you could just quickly explain why this $4.95 million wasn't provided in the original request, and what happened to make this request necessary. Sorry.
Okay, I'll give a little background, and then Chuck can give more of the details. Originally, when the cost estimate was developed, it was based on what the expectation of capital projects were at the time and the amount of environmental work that would be needed as part of that. During that time period, other projects have come up that weren't anticipated, or other dust mitigation projects that were required. So there are additional funds needed for environmental mitigation that weren't anticipated. For one of them, specifically for ESA, we had DS-104, a distributing station that's involved much more public input than originally envisioned. And then for the Scattergood project, which has just been permitted and is being built right now, there's additional modeling that we need to do related to it. That wasn't in place because new EPA regulations came out.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Okay.
Anything else?
Thank you.
That's it.
Other questions? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second? Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item number 16, Financial Services Investment Policy for Los Angeles DWP Trust Funds. Commissioner Funderburk.
Is there somebody to answer to this?
Yes, Phil Liber, Chief Financial Officer. I'll try to answer any questions you have.
Well, we've moved seats around a little bit on here, so.
No, what even though the investment policy is remaining in effect, I guess what I would like to do, if possible, is to move this to a later time. This commission hasn't been briefed on investments, the policy of the pension. We don't have a member on the pension board. I know that this isn't the pension from what I could tell. I did have a specific question related to the length of maturity of one of the or the average length of maturity in one of the instruments that composed about 20 to 30% of the portfolio. I saw a length of maturity that stretched out what appeared to be, I don't know if it was a long time or not, longer term or not, but it caught my eye, and I was just wondering if the principal balance would be subject to interest rate fluctuations or if it was being hedged. And so I thought that some of the things might be more appropriate to answer or respond to after we've gotten some type of more detailed briefing on exactly what's going on with the investments that the Commission has some say in approving. Unless this is this something that has to be done today, or?
I don't believe it would have to be done today. We would just continue on with the same investment policy that we have had in past years. In fact, there are no changes recommended to the policy for this year in any event. So if the board would like more time for discussions about particulars, I don't foresee that as a problem.
Yeah, I'd just like even if it's just 2 to 4 weeks more to, because even if it's no change, then no change is we're still approving something, and I just don't feel comfortable yet with the knowledge that I have of drilling down into some of the details on the investments.
I think that would be fine. So if the board would like to defer it, we can just spend some time with you on any of the specific questions you have about the policy and
I'd like
investments.
I'd like to join in any of those sessions. I have the same interest and lack of knowledge. So, did you have a thought, Rich?
Yes, sir. You can vote to defer it.
Do we have to defer it to a particular meeting?
No, you do not.
Okay.
But you need to vote.
I move that we vote to defer this to a later date.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's deferred. Thank you. Number 17, resolution honoring John Kakaska, Director of Power Supply Operations, upon his retirement. Mr. Nichols.
Actually, well, both Mr. Benjamin and I have some comments. I'd like to have Aaron start. I'll just have a couple of comments.
I'll start my comments, Mr. President, by saying this is over Chuck's objections for having anything mentioned in this meeting.
We had heard that, so I wasn't sure whether you wanted to proceed or not.
So I'll preface my comments with that and understanding his desire, but I cannot let this moment go without recognizing his career and his contribution to this department. So Chuck, he's going to retire after 33 years of service at the department, and he is going to retire as the director of the power supply and operation, which has over 1,000 employees that he's responsible for. Over his career, he's been almost in every section of the department, from safety, corporate safety, to director of human resources, to environmental, to training, to operations. He started his career as an operator, but throughout his career, he constantly improved himself, making himself more effective and more, useful for the department and the employees that he served. He has gone through several of the major responsibilities as far as the direct current, the high voltage stations that operate major power supplies of the power system. He has earned his master's degree in business administration, and he is currently a professor in the community colleges teaching business and management. But with all his achievements, I think one thing that sticks with Chuck and his reputation, that he has been preparing for this moment throughout the years that he spent here. He has been mentoring many employees that work for him or other sections of the department. He has taken the time to spend time with development aspects of the employees, his leadership skills, his abilities to make the city and the department a good place to work, and also get everybody to perform to their high standards. So I want to take this moment to thank him. He is not my, he's part of the management team of the power system, but he's more than a manager for me. He's been a great friend and a great mentor over the years, and I wish him the best of health and happiness in his retirement. So I just want to ask Chuck to stand up for a minute just to recognize him.
I'd like to add a couple quick notes to that. Not questions. There will be no questions. Come down, sit here up front, please. Having been here about 3 years, when you first come on board as general manager here, you spend a lot of time getting up to speed. And so you ask questions, and there are a lot of incredibly knowledgeable people, obviously, inside a department as complex as this. But particularly in the first 6-8 months, you'd ask a question, say, I'd like to get briefed on such and so. Well, yeah, you should talk to Chuck. And you ask this question, well, you should talk to Chuck. So because of all these positions, and because of the great pride that he's held in those positions, he not only knows about that, he explains the intricacies of it and how things got there and why they work the way they do. That is incredibly hard to replace, and if I can make him feel a little bit guilty about retiring, then so good. That'd be a good thing, even though it is well-deserved, Chuck. But I think even more than that, DWP is a family, and there are people that are kind of part of that, seminal part of that family, and Chuck is that. Chuck is just one of those people that creates the spirit of family inside this department. It will be sorely missed. I'm expecting he's going to come back periodically and check in on us. Thank you for everything you've done personally for me, Chuck, in helping me get a better understanding of this incredible organization. And I know that your wife is looking forward to actually having you home at a decent hour and a little bit more frequently than you have here. Enjoy that retirement, and Godspeed to you.
Well, thank you both very, very much. All but one of us are new board members here. We've only been here a matter of weeks. But it's quite moving to hear about people such as Chuck, and Chuck in particular, who've devoted so much of their time and their lives in such a marvelous manner to this organization. And it helps to underscore why the DWP is such a special place. So on behalf of the board as well, Chuck, we wish you weren't leaving, but I guess we don't have a vote in this. That's call my wife. You're right. That's probably a task that we shouldn't undertake. Congratulations and thank you. Thank you.
We need a vote for the resolution?
Yeah, why don't we do that? I guess we do get to vote on the resolution. It's going to be a close vote. Is there any opposition? Hearing none, it's unanimous. Congratulations. Thank you. Okay. We will move to the items for approval part of the agenda, and we will begin with item number 27, which was deferred from the October 16th board meeting, discussion of and possible action on status update on the reporting of terms requested by this board from the Joint Safety Institute and the Joint Training Institute. Mr. Nichols, you have any kind of a report on this at this
I do,
point?
and unfortunately I'm not finding that it's coming up. Hey, Reggie, can you hear me? If you can get this up on the screen, I'd appreciate it.
It's a mystery.
Well, it was supposed to be here. It's probably operator error on my part, I'm guessing.
It's on the monitor. It's just not on the screen. I don't know what you have to do there.
Here it comes.
There we go.
Let's get back to that. Great. There are two items that we want to speak to on this. I'm going to cover a topic related to, we're talking about the Joint Training Institute, the Joint Safety Institute, a matter that we've had some discussion on at prior meetings. We have Tom Coltis from the City Administrator's Office here to talk about some of their independent findings they've done. I thought prior to doing that, I'd take just a few moments to kind of put in context the JTI, JSI expenditure efforts and the role of that relative to our overall training efforts, just to try to give a little bit of context, because we really haven't had an opportunity to do that before. So when you look at training overall the department, there's a number of things that drive our requirements for that. One is obviously when you're dealing in an industry like this with high voltage, with high pressure water, a lot of complexity, a lot of people in the field, dealing in 24/7 all kinds of weather, safety is incredibly critical to any utility, and certainly one is as dense as our utility is, serving almost 4 million people within about 460 square miles. We're also going through an incredible amount of change to that system, change that requires a lot of different training, learning new skills, learning new procedures, learning new equipment. And we're at the same time dealing with both a lot of retirement of people. We're having a good at least 500 people a year retire from this organization. A lot of knowledge goes with that. We need to transfer that knowledge to other people and teach others quickly to ramp up on that. Sometimes, quite frankly, we don't know how quickly they're moving on. A lot of those issues. And from the right side here, you see just some of those key changes that we're dealing with. A lot of regulatory mandates, some of which this board has discussed, much more of which you'll become familiar on an agenda-by-agenda basis. Things that we're doing on renewable energy, we're already at 20%, ramping up to at least 33% and going beyond. We're backing out of coal, which is almost 40% of our supply right now, replacing that with lots of different other moving things. Our infrastructure is aging significantly, water and the power side, a lot to do just to simply keep the system running, and doing so as cost effectively as we can do. On the water side, we import a lot of water. We're trying to replace that importation with lots of different complex things here in water conservation and stormwater capture and cleaning up groundwater contamination, as well as recycled water. New and different things that we have not done a lot of before. Our whole customer service, we talked earlier about one of those items there. We changed over our customer information system completely, touched some 2,000 different functional activities that we have inside the organization. And on top of that, we've had a century of operation we just talked about. Well, a lot of that century still happens. Of things we do. We still have a blacksmith in our shop, for example, because there are things that are so old in our system, you have to create them out of a raw piece of iron. So, at the same time, you have to deal with all the newest and the greatest things of dealing with cybersecurity and IT. All of these things require an awful lot of training, and more than we ever had before. I want to put in perspective on here a table that shows over the last 5 fiscal years, and projected fiscal years, what our overall training costs are. The big blue bar there is a total, and this includes payment of out-of-pocket items, but the vast majority of this is the time that we spend, labor that we spend in training our staff, and the time that they spent for that, making those transitions, just a few of which I identified in that earlier discussion. So on average, we're looking at typically about $115 million a year in costs to train and continue to train, retrain, train for new, replace old knowledge and the retiring knowledge. People like Chuck, when they're leaving, we have to make sure that people behind them know what Chuck knows, for example. So that's that. The red bar is the approximately $4 million a year combined Joint Training, Joint Safety Institute funding. So we're looking at those major costs with a joint labor and management effort in those little red bars in terms of coming together to determine What are the key items that need to be there? What isn't being addressed in there? And in getting labor and management to work together on those things actually helps our staff learn it better. It's one thing when management can say, I deem this to be done, and go forth and do these things. It's a lot different when your peer or your direct supervisor, your person in the field or working along beside you has had input into this is how we should be training, this is what we need to do, and these are the things that are important. Not just to save money as we do things, not to just save on costs associated with things like worker comp and such that are safety, but making the system operation and making certain that our people are safe. So I just wanted to provide a bit of context in terms of the difference between the levels that we fund for that and the levels overall that we have to fund to keep an organization that provides water and power to almost 4 million people. There's another piece on this, so the next question that you kind of, let's go back quick, is, well, how does that compare? DWP is paying that much. Well, how's that compare to kind of industry? Well, it's hard to get an overall picture of the industry, and we don't have ready access information to investor-owned utility data, but we do have reasonable input information from the American Public Power Association. They do blind surveys that they provide information out on. So this has some 17 other utilities in terms of what is the training cost as a percent of total labor and benefit costs at each of those utilities. Now, I tell you, in looking at that, you see some tall bars, you see some short bars, and I'm told by the American Public Power Association when I asked about this, they said, well, we're not sure we have apples and apples here. We think some of these are just external expenses and some of these are external plus labor. I do believe that's probably the case in these, but irrespective of that, you're looking at generally in the 3 to 8% of total labor costs is being applied to salary. We are on the bit higher end of that. Some of these are about the same. One of them is a bit higher. I would anticipate that we would indeed be higher than most by virtue of the complexity of this system, how dense this system is, dealing inside the complexities of a major urban area, none of which any of those other utilities have at anything close to our scale. And I would say, in fact, I'm not certain that we're putting enough into it, given all those things I just talked about of what we're doing in changes. Our overall labor is something that we account for, and I want to pop back to this one. You'll see in that earlier slide, those dollars were going down, right, in the early years. Well, I came on board, and the first thing 3 years ago when I came on board is I started cutting budgets. I cut $500 million out of our budgets between capital and labor, and training was one of those. And we had a lot of long, hard discussions about that, and I got some pushback on it. And I might, probably knowing what I know now, might not have cut back as much on that training as we did, knowing with a little bit clearer glasses on where we are. So that's kind of why you see that dip and raising up a bit. I just wanted to give you a little bit of that background. I'm not going to go through this final slide. You have copies of that with you here, but just gives you an idea of, in the power, the water, and the joint area, our support services area, of what that big bar cost of training goes towards, the types of things that we're doing, the types of things that we fund as the department, as part of our budget, guided in part through this joint effort between JTI and JSI with respect to what might be missing on that, what are the things that we should add for greater safety, what do we need to add that we might not quite have recognized, and doing so in a joint manner. So if you have any questions on that, but I just want to give a bit of context before Tom goes in and describes what the CAO's independent findings were with respect to some of the functioning and the purposes of these two organizations.
I have a comment, which just leaps out at me, I must say, and I'm looking forward to hearing what the CAO's office has to say. I don't think anybody on this board, or in the context of the discussions we've had, has any doubt that there's extraordinary training and safety needs. And I don't think anybody on this board questions the extraordinary importance of it, particularly in light of all of what you've outlined, which I think is indisputable. I also don't think anybody doubts that the combined costs of the Joint Training Institute and the Joint Safety Institute are relatively minor compared to the training that goes on more broadly. But having said that, and I know that you weren't implying this, but having said that, we need to know how the money was spent. And even though it is a relatively small amount by comparison to the larger amounts, it's a lot of money. And I don't think you were suggesting that we don't need to know where the money was spent. But small as it is by comparison, it is still very important. And it doesn't reduce the importance of understanding how that money was spent and whether it was spent in a manner that suggests that it should continue to be spent.
No, and I appreciate that point and your observation in that regard. And I don't disagree with you with respect to that.
I didn't think you did, but
my only point of raising this is that you're a new board. We haven't had an opportunity to discuss kind of our overall expenditures. In fact, at our next board meeting, we're going to have a more thorough discussion of budget overall. And there have been media discussions as though this was an extraordinary amount of money. It's important. We need to understand the need to know the accountability associated with that and such. But I just wanted to make sure for those who are not familiar with it to say, while $4 million is a lot of money, training is a much bigger thing, and to try to put in context that at least expenditure level compared to our total budget.
And I should add, I don't think anybody doubts the importance of labor management cooperation in the training either. I mean, that's obviously also very important. One of the many things that have hit me in the face over the course of the last few weeks that the new members have been board members is just how large this organization is and the magnitude of so many aspects of it, including the training. But having said all of that, $4 million over a number of years is a lot of money, and we still need to understand how it was spent and whether it was spent in a worthwhile manner.
Understood. I think with that, unless there are additional questions, I'd like to turn it over to Tom Coltis to go over the findings.
If I may add to what President Levine said, it's really not $4 million, it's $40 million. And as I had stated at our last meeting, within the scheme of things, it's not a lot of money. But I think if we're talking about transparency and accountability, we need to know how the money was spent. And the other thing that I still don't know is why is it needed? It seems to me there must be internal training within DWP itself, and they have trainers. In fact, one of the items on our agenda today deals with the trainers from within the organization. So I still don't understand the rationale why these two groups are needed above and beyond what is provided for by DWP.
Well, I think some of that actually gets addressed in the independent report that was performed by the CAO, and if there are additional questions after that, with respect to that, I'd be pleased to engage in further discussion on that.
Tom Coltis from the CAO's office. What I just handed out is our report, which was prepared at the request of the Energy and Environment Committee. And they gave us a specific task, which was to look at the JTI and the JSI and report back on each institute, their organizational structure, their financial transactions, and their history, and their programmatic accomplishments. And so the report you have in front of you addresses all of those areas with the exception of what you just indicated is your primary concern, which is the financial transactions. And the reason this report does not address the financial transactions is because there has been an audit requested of both of the institutes, and it's been our experience that if multiple players engage in a multiple review of a set of financial documents, you end up with a more confusing situation than you would have if you had simply started with one and worked from that one document. So at this point, our request to the Energy and Environment Committee was let the audit go forward, and once we receive that audit, then we would evaluate the audit and report back to the Energy and Environment Committee on what our opinion is relative to the findings of the audit.
Can I just interrupt you and ask you a quick question? In the context of your response to the City Council, I assume you've had some conversations with the trustees of the two entities. Can you let us know how the audit is going and what we can expect to see on November 19th?
I have spoken to some of the trustees with regards to the specifics of the audit. I do not have that information at this point in time in terms of what you will see. What I think is clear from the trust documents, though, in both JTI and JSI, is that you have the full right to receive all of the information. And I can speak to what's, this is probably a sad state of affairs as it relates to government, but it's one of these issues, which is we put programs in place all the time. And we put in reporting requirements on those programs all the time. And the people that put them in move on, and they may or may not train their successors to do the full obligations that we have put in place. And I can speak to one from personal experience, which is on the city side, we have a joint labor management benefits committee. This is a committee which is responsible for the design of our health care and dental benefits down for the rest of the city of Los Angeles workers. And included is something somewhat similar to what you see in JTI and JSI, which is money comes into a fund, and those funds cannot be expended unless management and labor agree. And so we design a health plan. Money comes in pursuant to the MOUs, and then it gets dispersed out of that fund with management and labor agreeing on the disbursements. One of the conditions when we put this program in place was we were going to report back to the City Council every year on the activities of the trust. So we put it in place in 1989, and in 1990 we wrote the report, and in 1991 we wrote the report, and in 1992 no one asked me. And I said, if no one's going to ask, I have better things to do. So I didn't send it. And we didn't report again until 2012. And what it looks like with JTI and JSI is the same type of thing. In JTI and JSI, there is one continuity player, and it is not on the management side. I was at committee the other day, and I said, on the management side, you do not have continuity. And I said, there must have been between 5 and 7 new general managers at Water and Power between 2000 and 2012. And I said, no, you're wrong. It was 8. So in terms of maintaining that continuity on the management side, it has not been here. And it is also true with regards to the commission. The commissions are not continuous either. And so in terms of what these two agreements provide for, when I review them, they provide for the ability of either side to request an audit. They provide for full transparency on the actions of the JTI and JSI. They provide for consensus voting on actions so that if there is an action that has taken place by JTI or JSI, it is not done in secrecy. They have an agenda, they have minutes, and more importantly, nothing can happen in these two institutes if management and labor do not agree.
Other than the audit?
Other than the audit as it has been asked for. But, and this is my review of the trust fund documents, you still have access to the actions and to the findings of these committees. And so if you're not getting them, you have the right to get them. And I think it's more a matter of we might not have exercised our rights over these years with respect to these two institutes, but in terms of your ability to secure the information, it's provided for in the trust. And these trusts are not set in stone. They provide for the ability for both parties to amend them as well. So I think to the commissioners a question on why do we have them in the first place. I think the reason that we have them in the first place is these types of programs get created in the environment in which was present at the time that these things are created. And so when you look back on JSI, the electric industry goes through deregulation in the state of California and all of the associated problems with that. At exactly right about the same time, we amend the Los Angeles City Charter to say that as a problem-solving solution, we support the concept of joint labor management committees. Concurrently, workers' compensation in the year 2000 was going through one of its spikes, and workers' compensation costs spike periodically depending upon a myriad of factors, but 2000 was one of those eras. And you'd just gone through deregulation, and one of the utilities' responses to deregulation was a significant drop in deployment level. We separated a lot of workers in '98. I know, because I worked on the layoff, that we never did because we ended up separating them through a separation plan. And so you combine those things. That's the environment in which this thing occurs. And the general manager at the time, David Freeman, worked with the union, and the union had a model. And that model was the one that Boeing uses for its workers. And it's a model that comes driven by the contract. Money goes into the institute. Management and labor agree on programs to run out of the institute. And Boeing claimed great success. We reviewed it back in 2000 because this was an MOU amendment. So it actually went through the Executive Employer Relations Committee and the City Council. City Council adopted it. The board at the time adopted the resolution to create it and approved the trust fund agreement. And so in that context, it was a model that was being used. And it's not just here. Down in the city, in the Department of Public Works, we have a very extensive commitment to the joint labor management process in our sanitation department, both on the solid waste side and on the water side. So in terms of charter-driven, it's a solution that had been used somewhat effectively. And the effectiveness of joint labor management is really a function of whether or not management and labor are working well together.
I just want to make a comment to you about using Boeing as a model. Boeing is not DWP. DWP is provided, the money is from the ratepayers. That's not the case with Boeing, which is a corporation. So we're the shareholders, and we're putting money into this. It's a very different situation, and I think that that's kind of a poor choice to say that that's the model.
It was the model that IBEW brought to the department for the department to consider.
I got that.
And the department considered it. And I will say this, having worked in safety for a long period of time, if we cannot engage across the board so that it is more than management engaging on the issue of safety, we will not succeed. And so some type of labor partnership is almost fundamental to driving a successful outcome in safety. Because I know on the city side, your manager is not there every minute of every day. You know, your coworkers might be, but your manager is not there. So if you're engaging in unsafe activity, you have the opportunity to be unsafe about 6 hours out of every day, and maybe 2 hours while your supervisor is
But we're not
available.
disputing that. We're not disputing the need for this and how important safety is. And some of the occupations are very, very dangerous. I mean, we all get that. But what we're saying is, what do you do? And why don't they do? What do they do within DWP? So why did you need to create something different? That's the question. That's what we're asking.
Right.
Not the need to train people in safety.
Right. And this was a choice. Now, clearly, the department didn't have to create these back when they did in 2000, but in that environment, it was deemed to be a reasonable solution.
I think it's a different environment now.
It is a different environment today, but some of the underlying issues remain the same. You know, the underlying issues of you lost a lot of workers in 1998 and you lost a lot of institutional knowledge. Well, you're losing 500 workers a year now, so you're continuing to lose institutional knowledge. Safety will always be an issue, especially in an industry like the one you're in. So some issues remain the same. The emphasis of joint labor management committees, I don't come to this from the labor side, to be very perfectly honest. I come to it from a much different management perspective. And so for years, I thought they were a complete waste of time. I mean, I did a lot of laboring and they did a lot of complaining in some of these joint labor management committees I was on. But when they're done correctly, they can produce significant value. And I've seen them work. And so my experience is tempered in this area, because originally it was like, forget it, I don't have time for this. Now it's done correctly, they can move your curve. You know, they can drive a better outcome. They can actually create value. And so, is it an absolutely deplorable model? No, it's not. It is fundamentally driven by whether management and labor are working together on it, or whether they're working at odds. If they're working at odds, then management might as well just move on and run their own program. In terms of JTI and JSI, particularly JTI, what's important about these two institutes is that neither of them are responsible for safety or for training. That is not their mission. That obligation stays with the department. The department has its core safety responsibility. You are responsible for regulatory compliance. You cannot delegate that responsibility to this institute. This is the department's responsibility. So what are these? And the same thing with training. Your management is responsible for ensuring that the workforce is adequately trained to safely and knowledgeably and efficiently perform the work.
So what is their responsibility?
So their responsibility is to provide advice. And in this case, this is where, when labor management committees work properly, this is where you get value. Because day-to-day workers see issues that top-level managers do not. And so they can bring these issues forward through this institute, and then the institute can create programs. Now, the way that the institute is designed is, I think of them as incubators for programs. Issues come to them, both from management and from labor, with issues that they see need to be addressed. The institute takes a look at them and says, we can do something here. We have a certain amount of money that we can spend on it, and we can get it done, and we can get it done relatively quickly in comparison to what I would characterize as a long and detailed governmental procurement process, which we have. And so they have the ability to move quickly. They have the ability to integrate information from management and labor, design what you hope for. And if management is doing what they're supposed to be doing in this committee, is getting a best-of-breed program to address these issues, and then run the program. And then they can run it themselves, or they can spin it off and give it to the department training staff, and the department can run it. So think of it as identification of problems in a joint fashion, creation of a solution in a joint fashion, and quicker implementation than we could possibly do ourselves. And then, if it provides value, JTI can run it, and JSI can run them, or they spin them back to the department, and the department runs the program themselves. So, does that preclude the department from creating its own programs? Absolutely not. The department can continue to and does create its own programs. Does that preclude the department from addressing safety issues? No, not at all. The department continues to address safety issues. This is a resource. And if it's used the way it's designed, and all of the transparency that is built into these trust fund documents is exercised, then they can provide value, and they can provide the level of transparency necessary.
So you don't see them as redundant at all?
I see them as a tool, and a tool that you have a choice. If in the subsequent MOU, if you don't want to use this tool, we can negotiate it out of existence. But it exists today. It has the opportunity to provide value, and it has within its structure the capacity to provide the level of transparency that I think is appropriate. So, and I guess my question would be, if you look at the bar, would the department take that red bar and move it somewhere else in the organization to, I don't know, I don't do a lot of DWP operational stuff, but let's just assume you take that red bar and you move it to something completely unrelated to training or safety. That's a possibility. Or would you take that red bar and simply add it to the blue bar? My guess is, based on what the general manager just indicated, is he would just add it to the blue bar. So the net effect is you can do it all yourself, which in the long run, especially in the area of safety, my experience has been you won't reach the value-added outcome that you want, or you can do it cooperatively. And as I say, used effectively with the transparency tools that exist, it should work.
In addition to the financial audit that we're anticipating, will we be given specific examples of the advice that was given, the programs that were implemented, the money that we saved in insurance, or, will we be provided with case studies and specific, tangible information as to what this money went towards?
I think I will wait. I kind of reserve my own question on what we'll see coming out of the audit. And whatever we see coming out of the audit, if it's not sufficient, we just go back and ask for more. And with regards to a deliverable, safety to me is one I can measure. And the reason I think you can measure safety is it's Cal OSHA reportable, and so you know, for example, what your injuries are. And in this case, and I'm not saying the JSI is the reason for this, but in the year 2000, this utility had 8.1 accidents per 100 employees. Today, we have 5.1. JSI has existed during this entire window. Did they create that change? And your average claim costs are a little over $6,000 per claim. So you've reduced your incidents by 2 employees per 100. It's roughly $1.5 million in savings, just applying that to about an 8,500 size workforce, and you're a little bigger than that now. So have things changed? Yes. Is JSI solely responsible for that? I doubt it. We've had we've had at least 3 work comp reform laws in the intervening period of time, so some of that plays into it, and corporate safety is doing what corporate safety is doing as well. And I've worked with safety staff, and they are the true believers in the organization. They love this stuff, and so they are constantly trying to move this needle downward. And so, but as an integrated whole, there has been improvement in that area. As it relates to training, training for me is the toughest metric to establish. How do you know that your training was effective? And how do you measure that long term? And so, the short answer to is your training effective is your program still working? And in this case, is the water still flowing? Yes. Is the electricity still on? Yes. Therefore, at some level, I don't know whether it's a good level or a bad level, but at some level, your training is working because you're providing the product that you're required to provide. Are you providing it as cost effectively, efficiently, et cetera, that I think I couldn't even begin to assess. But in terms of the aggregate, your training is effective because you are producing your product. Could it be better? I don't think anybody says it couldn't be better. Everybody will tell you it could be better. And that's kind of the purpose of JTI, which is to ensure that you have this continuous process improvement.
First of all, I want to thank you for this, and I'm looking forward to reviewing the written document. It's very helpful. And speaking for myself, the concepts all sound very reasonable, and particularly the concept of labor management cooperation on safety and training and getting it sort of from the bottom up rather than from the top down. I can clearly understand the value to that. Problem is, we don't know how the money was spent. That's the bottom line. There are all kinds of questions about, are the needs today the same as they were before? Those really aren't mine, personally, so much. I do believe in the intrinsic value of bottom-up labor management cooperation, but we don't know how the money was spent. So I'm reassured to hear your assurances that we're as entitled as we believe we are to transparency and information and knowing how the money was spent. But it's impossible for us to evaluate the cost-benefit analysis of this unless we have a pretty good idea of how the money was spent, and so far we have none. So,
and I think that if the audit doesn't produce that level of financial information that you feel is necessary to reach a conclusion on the cost-benefit, then it is within the agreement itself for you to demand additional information.
Well, I can assure you that we will seek the information to the level at which we feel it gives us a thorough understanding of these expenditures. But having said that, I really do thank you for the broader insights. They're very important, and I think they make a lot of sense personally.
I had a couple of comments,
Sure.
Mr. President. And I think that we have to divorce ourselves from whether this is a good idea, and it seems like a lot of time is being spent justifying it. All we want to do is know who the money's being spent on and where it's being spent. Very specific questions, not is this a good idea? And we spent half an hour talking about something that we already agreed on, which was, labor management relations those are a good idea. Is it a small amount of money to spend in the context of things? Yeah, it's a really small amount of money. Could a consultant be hired to do the same thing? Probably not. But I think that very specific, not just the information from the audit, but what I'd like to know, if you were coordinated when you met with and talked to the trustees, of the joint trust, if you were coordinated with the ratepayers advocate on her and Dr. Pickles' specific requests that have been made over the past of the nature of what's going on with the and specific questions that are being asked about where the money's being spent, who it's being spent on, who the officers are, and what salaries they're being paid. Just very basic things that should be transparent to the public. And I think it's more just a matter of a question of structure of whether we continue this and not whether it's beneficial from a labor management standpoint. It's more, says, can the structure be changed so that we don't have to make a demand for provision number 20, clause D, subpart I, and exercise our right under that, but it's more the information flows back and forth a little more easily, and it's disclosed so the public knows where every dollar is going, and certainly where $4 million a year is going. So I look forward to the audit results myself. I've brought up the issue of benchmarking and comparisons to other types of programs, and I think that General Manager Nichols, even though he's wearing two hats here, both as fiduciary to the trust and a fiduciary to DWP, has been very as forthcoming as possible about what this organization does. It's not a training. It's not training, and we get that. Is it a kumbaya feel good type of thing? No, I actually can see the benefit of things like this myself, but I really would like to know specifically if your discussions were coordinated with the ratepayer advocate and her and Dr. Pickles' requests in terms of getting to the bottom of things from what you were asked to do by Councilmember Fuentes, not knowing either what's in this report. So.
Yeah. With regards to our interaction with the ratepayer advocate, because we carved off the financial piece pending the audit, this is pretty much entirely our work. When we come back to report on the audit piece, it will be in closer conjunction with the ratepayer advocate in terms of making sure that we address all their questions and our own questions. But I think a lot of that is going to be driven by what we see. If we get an audit back that doesn't provide any substantive information, I think that's a completely different issue than if we get a relatively full disclosing audit.
And I'd like to ask the ratepayer advocate, have your questions been answered at all that you've asked, and when did you ask them?
I sent questions out in advance of the October 8th trustee meeting that you were informed of on October 1st, because I wanted there to be an opportunity for the trustees to see what we were asking of the department, and was informed that those requests would not be sent to the trustees, at which point I proceeded to consult with the city attorney on an issue to see whether I should give the trustees my own notice of the request so that they could have an opportunity to be fully cooperative with the knowledge of what the requests were, and did not hear back from the city attorney. Following that week, I then sent out a second request on this week asking what time they could estimate I would have responses to the first set of questions, and adding additional questions to the request based on my research of the comparable entities. Because what I've been learning as I look out for examples to determine whether the scope of the activities are delivering the value associated with the monies put in the trust is that there's a very interesting sort of structure to these organizations, that committees aren't funding vehicles, and they're subject, when it's apprenticeship training, to the regulation of the California Department of Industrial Relations. And if it were a Boeing-funded training trust, it would be subject to regulation by the U.S. Department of Labor and IRS as to allowed expenses, fiduciary duties, reporting requirements, a lot of detail about what can and can't be done. If it were a trust that was subordinate to a union, there are also a whole different set of regulatory requirements that involve the fiduciary duty, the reporting requirements, and the allowed transactions. But because this trust is neither a union trust or a privately funded trust, it sits in kind of a juncture between those two worlds. So I called IBEW National. They have a training trust. I looked at the IBEW 11 City of Commerce Training Trust. Most of the trusts that I can find that are joint training trusts produce apprentices at a cost that is known as dollar per apprentice in the $9,000 to $11,000 range. But those trusts have a completely different objective, which is to produce an apprentice. And they also have a funding component, usually by the employer, that's in cents per hour of labor. And I can tell you, from what I know so far, that the cents per hour formula here is very modest, but it's also not a comparable trust. And I will continue to try and find trusts that are neither private funded and thus federally regulated, or committees without funding and thus state supervised, to see if we can come up with a couple of other instances where there's an advisory capacity that's funded for an amount. In addition to that, I've asked to take the Safe Start training module myself, so I am in a position to tell you whether it's worth what was spent on it, because that's the one that's rolling out right now. And that's the source of a lot of commentary that we received in July that suggested I needed to get out to the Power Training Center. And I talked to all the trainers that I could meet with the day I was there. I asked them about the trusts. I've followed up with specific questions to verify at the organizational level the information that they've given me about what they see as value associated with the trust. So I continue to proceed in developing a context in which you'll be able to become comfortable in judging whether these monies are delivering value.
I just want to be sure that you were being responded to, that your questions were being timely responded to in whatever format.
Well, I've asked for an estimate of when I would get answers, and that question is pending as well.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments on this item?
No, just in general, I mean, the initial round of requests that were provided by the RPA back in October have indeed been shared with the trustees.
I have one, I want to modify one of my requests, and I ask you, Mr. Nichols, to convey this. When I made my motion spelling out the backup information that we wanted, I had put a threshold on canceled checks, which I've concluded in thinking about it over the last 2 weeks was too high. I suggested that we seek checks that exceeded $5,000. I would like to modify that request for checks that exceed $1,000. Do I need to make that in the form of a motion?
Yes, sir.
I make that motion. Is there a second? Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
No opposition. If you would amend my $5,000 request to $1,000, I'd appreciate that.
Will do.
Thank you very much. It's very informative and helpful, and we appreciate it. Okay. Going to the items for approval and discussion. Item number 18, Environment and Efficiency, the San Fernando Valley Water Recycling Project, including mitigated negative declaration. This is a modest one.
About that?
Yeah. I have a question. Are we being asked to? What are we being asked to do on this item?
To approve the mitigated neg.
To approve the mitigated neg.
Correct.
Okay.
Right, but my name is Susan Rocani. I'm from the Water Engineering and Technical Service Division, Director. there's Chuck Holloway at the end, environmental, and Paul Luke from my staff in charge of planning for water recycling. We're giving you a brief presentation on the water recycling as it relates to the San Fernando Valley Water Recycling Project based on the questions that were received at the first board meeting when this came before you. So what we have in front of you and on the screen for the rest of us, I'm going to go through kind of a quick overview of just our water recycling project in LA to give you some context of what we have to date and how what you have in front of you fits in. But basically, we've been working with water recycling for over 30 years. We have irrigation industrial uses, which we call purple pipe uses, and then we also have lakes and river habitat usage. You could see the picture in the corner that's with, that just switched, but it was DC Tillman, the Japanese gardens. We also have Balboa that we provide, lake that we provide recycled water for. That's in the valley. And we also have fire hydrants, which we have recycled water, and we also provide other uses such as dust control and street cleaning for that. Some of our highlights for recycled water, in total we have 55 miles of the purple pipe. We have 2 storage tanks, 2 pumping stations. We have almost 150 customer sites, and we provide 8,000 acre-foot per year. And so, as engineers, we're used to saying, acre-foot per year, and what is that? So to give you a picture of that, it's a football field filled to a depth of 1 foot. So that's how much an acre-foot of water is. So
Very useful. Thank you.
Yes, it's hard to. we're used to. So you could have that visual in your mind, but it's a lot of water. And then we also have spent $266 million of capital to date on our recycled water system. This is a breakdown of historical capital costs by area. So you could see we have recycled water facilities in our major areas. In the harbor area, we have 10 miles of pipeline. We're providing 3,000 acre-feet per year. Metro area is 1,700 acre-feet per year. In the valley, 2,600 acre-foot per year. West side, 700 per acre-foot per year. It pretty much just totals up to the figures we gave you on the previous slide, which comes out to the 8,000 acre-foot per year. But it gives you an idea of how this is distributed within the city. In terms of the sources of recycled water, there's 4 major sources within the city. These are both owned and operated by Bureau of Sanitation. The largest is the Hyperion Treatment Plant. That's you could see by our Scattergood plant that's down by Playa Vista. Tillman Water Reclamation Plant, that's the one that we're working with the Bureau of Sanitation to expand in order to have our water replenishment projects in the valley. And also the Terminal Island Treatment Facility, that's in the process of being expanded. A lot of that water is used for the seawater intrusion barrier down in the harbor area. Now this gives you the existing purple pipes within the valley. So you can see the pipeline that goes all the way up to our Pacoima spreading, close to our Pacoima and Hanson spreading grounds. That's been put in for a few years, but all the projects for the San Fernando Valley projects will be coming off of this system with the exception of the one from Burbank. That's going to be using water from Burbank. So it also shows some of the major folks that we are serving recycled water off that line. You may be aware that we had embarked on a recycled water master plan. It was a 3-year project, which we worked with the Bureau of Sanitation. It was completed in early 2012. And the 2 major strategies that came out of it is, one, we should have more purple pipe, and looked at the most cost-effective implementations that were identified in the master plan. And we also should look at more groundwater replenishment. And I mentioned the expansion of the DC Tillman plant, which we are working with sanitation to look at expanding that, providing additional treatment, and we are actually embarking on the CEQA process for that, DWP being the lead agency for that. Okay, this gives you the picture of all the projects that are being proposed under the mitigated neg deck. There are 6 actual projects for it. They are color-coded so you could see them. The first one is on the right side, which is the striped orange and blue project. That's the one that will be taking water from Burbank. That's the first one we have. The second one would be the Valley, what we call the Valley Plaza Park. That's the one in blue that you see kind of also dashed on the right-hand side. Third segment, Van Nuys, Sherman Oaks, that's in the yellow. It is actually connected to our purple pipe. So there's a segment of purple pipe that's not shown, but that's also connected to the system, would be connected to the system. Fourth segment is Reseda Park. That's in green. Fifth is Pierce College in light blue, and sixth segment is the VA hospital. So that's a total. This is all for a total cost of $54.6 million. Now, in summary, all these projects would add 22 miles of new purple pipe in the 6 segments I mentioned. These were identified as cost-effective projects from the master plan, and we anticipate over 2,000 acre-foot of recycled water to be delivered through these particular projects. You can see the customer mix that we would be serving. There'd be parks, schools, freeway location, colleges, hospitals. And then finally, to give you an idea of how much this is all costing, we looked at it cost per acre foot of recycled water. This is typically how we look at it, and we also compare it to the MWD treated Tier 1 water rates. For these projects, the price ranges in current dollars from $370 per acre foot to $920 per acre foot. You can see at the bottom chart, currently MWD treated Tier 1 water is $847 per acre foot. These projections are from MWD, so you could see next year the cost comes close to $900. Year after that it is over $900, and it's trending toward $1,000. So that gives you the both historical and predicted future trends of MWD cost of water. What I'd like to do is now hand this over to Chuck Holloway, who will be talking about the sequel portion of the project.
Hi, Chuck Holloway, Environmental Affairs. Mitigated negative declaration was prepared for this project, and as we were going through that process, we identified 3 environmental factors that had the were potentially significant impacts to those. It was traffic, transportation, noise, and cultural resources. However, applying mitigation, we were able to reduce those potential impacts to less than significant. Therefore, we ended up circulating a mitigated negative declaration and attached mitigation monitoring reporting plan. As we went through the process, we had a 30-day public review period late last year, and we had circulated or sent out over 2,000 notices to the residents and commercial operators and owners along the proposed routes. We've met with LA Unified School District to discuss some of their concerns, and we advertised in the Los Angeles Times. We had the documents available at 7 of the local libraries, and it was also available on our website. We received 6 comment letters during the public review period. They weren't really form letters, but they were from agencies, and they were basically brought the same kinds of issues that are often brought up regarding projects like this, such as make sure we get our applicable permits, if we have oversized loads, to get those permits from Caltrans, various encroachment plans, best management practices, and items like that. LA Unified School District, their main concern was just to make sure that we coordinate closely with the principals and school administrators for construction when we were in near those facilities. That's kind of it for the environmental review, but I would like to add, you had, President Levine, asked exactly what we were asking you to approve today, and I believe we're asking you to certify or approve the mitigated neg deck, adopt the mitigation monitoring and reporting plan, and to approve the project. However, as part of this project, when it moves forward,
there will be an award of a construction contract, and that at that time, that would be brought before the board for approval, and that would be at a later date. But I just want to make sure that you understood what we were asking you to approve today.
Okay, a city attorney needs to make a statement.
Deputy City Attorney Tina Shim, I just wanted to make clear and follow up on what Chuck said, that it is
Can you
required.
speak into a mic? So?
Yes. Deputy City Attorney Tina Shim, I just wanted to follow up on what Chuck said and make clear that the board understands that you must adopt this resolution, and specifically you have to adopt the mitigated negative declaration under CEQA. So that's it.
I just have a question about it. I found it fascinating. I reviewed it before our first meeting. I had no idea the scope of things that we were being asked to review, and I asked for the deferral because it was such a large project, and I just wanted to give it time to sink in. How are we able to mitigate traffic to the extent that you're suggesting we can mitigate it? I mean, I'm not particularly challenging, and I'm just kind of curious. It seems to me it inevitably is going to cause very serious traffic issues, but why won't it?
Well, there are a number of mitigations, and I believe it's attachment 4 in your handout. But for traffic, it was things like developing a traffic management plan, certain detours, adding left turn lanes in various intersections that would be temporary. The construction would be limited to certain time to avoid rush hour traffic, things like that. And then with cultural resources, a lot of that was monitoring during when you're in areas where there's been no previously disturbed soil disturbance, and then they also have the ability to relocate work if something's found and things like that. And then the area of noise, it was stuff like the use of rubber-tired equipment versus steel-tracked, certain noise curtains, or avoiding certain sensitive receptors at times when they would, at various times.
When we've done projects like, I assume we don't do these every day, but when we've done big projects that have required this type of traffic relocation, has it succeeded in not causing significant traffic problems?
Well, yes, for the most part. I mean, we monitor it. We have monitors out there. We implement it. I don't believe there's any trench tunneling associated with this, but sometimes when we have potentially significant impacts at intersections and stuff, we'll do either pipe jacking or tunneling. But I think with the implementation of some of the left turn lanes and the detours and signage and all of that, advance notices and stuff, it seems to be pretty effective. This isn't a real large diameter pipe, and so you're, I think, only taking 1 or 1.5 lanes, and it's a moving impact.
Okay. Glad to hear it.
Yeah.
Commissioner Barad?
Yes, hi. I think this is much needed, and I'm excited about it. I just have a few questions, clarification. This has nothing to do with the groundwater cleanup that's proposed for the valley. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And this is using recycled water.
Yes.
For watering lawns and whatever,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Like from the Tillman plant.
Yes.
And it will not be treated for drinking water.
No, it's not for
It's
drinking
not for
water.
that.
No.
Okay. Now, what rate are you charging? Because I noticed that one of the places that the water will go will be a sod farm. So you're not giving it to them for free. So what are you charging for the water?
The rates for the schedule for the recycled water is set forth in our rate ordinance in Schedule D, and it's typically about 30 to 40% of the potable price. So we are charging the customers for the water. The reason why the rate is set the way it is because customers still have on-site improvements that need to make and spend money on their side of the meter in order to take the recycled water. But yes, they are going to be paying for the water.
They're going to be paying for the water.
Yes.
All right, so if I see the project is going to cost $54 million, are you going to be able to recoup that investment based on what you're going to be charging for the water? What's the cost benefit in this?
Well, but I mean, part of the cost benefit is basically we're going to be offsetting our need to buy imported water from MWD. So
But I'm asking about the $54 million that it's going to cost to do this. What do you get back by charging people for this water, this recycled water?
I guess we'd have to look at what that would be. I mean, because I know you want per all the customers, correct? I mean, the potential customers and how much we charge for the customer versus the cost of the particular project.
Yes.
Yes, you're looking for that. So I guess we'd have to look at what that would be per how much we think we're going to sell, and then how much that particular segment would cost us.
Yeah, because I know in the report you've named
6 segments.
Yeah,
right.
And the customers, some of the customers.
Right, the potential customers, right.
All right. Let's see. I looked at the map, and I wanted to ask you specifically about. I don't know if you're aware. There's a property in Sherman Oaks on Sepulveda, and it's called Castle Park. It's owned by the city of Los Angeles. And I don't know if you're aware of it. It's batting cages and it's miniature golf.
It's a very important facility.
And a very important facility. And they're now watering all their vegetation, which is considerable, with just sprinklers. And they're probably, I'm trying to figure out by looking at the map, maybe a mile from Tillman. And I don't see in reading and in your map that you have made any, that you're going to take the water, the recycled water from Tillman and get it to Castle Park so that they can use the recycled water instead of the good water. Do you have any comment about that?
Well, I don't know if we've looked at that particular potential customer in the master plan. I mean, that's something we could certainly look at. When we look at the potential customers, we look at the cost, and we also, in terms of what it would take to get our pipe out to that particular facility, and we also look at the demands, how much recycled water we'd be able to serve that facility. So it's a balance of those two. So that's something we could certainly look into.
I'm aware of it particularly because it's in my neighborhood council boundaries. And we have looked at the thousands and thousands of dollars that they are spending on water, to water all the vegetation. And the proximity to Tillman, it's there. Now, of course, I don't know the technical thing about how you bring the pipe over, but I would really like you to look at that, because I think that would be an important one.
If I might add, one thing we're noticing is as we install the backbone, kind of the infrastructure, you build it, they will come, and so even though they haven't been identified or have signed up initially, once the infrastructure is there to be added at a later date, the cost goes way down, and so this is all kind of just the backbone.
Now, most people don't realize that property is owned by the city. But I would really appreciate your getting back to me on that.
We can do that. And in our recycled water master plan, we attempted to go through and identify all the parcels like that kind of a park or those kind of uses where water consumption was up. But there may be some that in the scan that we used, maybe the water consumption didn't quite meet a target or something. But we'll make sure that we go back and specifically take a look at that and get back to you on that.
All right. Then also, there's a golf course within that area. Are you are you going to be using the water for that golf course? It's called Encino Glen.
Does it ring a bell?
You know, Commissioner, I'm not familiar with that golf course, but the 3 golf courses in the Sepulveda Basin, Balboa and
Yeah.
Encino, they are on recycled
So
water
that
already.
is going to be there.
Yeah, if that is the golf
Yes.
course you're referring to.
So that
yes.
would be...
It's already, I think,
It's already
being
on
served by
recycled
Okay.
water.
Okay, good. When you were talking about the, trying to get your exact terminology, the public comment, it's a concern of mine what you did for public comment. I know that you posted it in certain places, and it was, I guess these books were available at the library. But when I look at who responded, you've got 6 entities, 6 agencies that came for public comment. Well, this is very few, and these are organized entities. And it seems that that the 30-day public review process somehow did not bring out the public. And I'm wondering how the public was notified. I will tell you this, that I looked through everything, and it's very difficult. I mean, if you're not an engineer, I mean, this is very technical reading, and it really requires somebody to walk us through it. And I did not see in anywhere here where you actually went out to the community, specifically in those communities they're going to be affected, and actually spoke, to them. And you've got the vehicle, you've got neighborhood councils, you've got the Valley Alliance of Neighborhood Councils, which represents every neighborhood council in the Valley. I know you didn't come there because I'm the chair of it, so I didn't see you. So I'm concerned that the people who are going to be affected by this, and some of the discomfort or whatever, really don't know about this at all.
Regarding the notification, we notified the property owners and businesses along the route that would be potentially impacted during the construction of the infrastructure. I think regarding the recycled water, the use of that, the opportunities and benefits to the city and citizens of Los Angeles, I think that was handled under the master project, and I believe there was some outreach done with that. We really didn't focus so much on this mitigated neg deck, on the recycled water, as much as looking at the installation of the infrastructure, the construction-related traffic, noise, air quality, potential impacts like that.
Well, but that's what I'm saying, that I don't see that there was public outreach discussing the infrastructure and what that's going to mean to the people who are affected in these areas.
I hear what you're saying, and we'll try to do a better job in the future on these kinds of projects.
Well, I think you need to do it for this project.
Commissioner Barr, if I can, I certainly understand your concerns. If I may just add that we have a very successful recycled water outreach program that we started when the master plan started in 2009, the Recycled Water Advisory Group, from which many neighborhood council folks are part of, and that is a process that we will continue to move forward as we push forward with our recycled water program. You can certainly come out to any neighborhood council meetings coming up to get on their schedule, hopefully, to be able to talk about this project. We can certainly make that commitment.
Well, what is your timeline? You mean you're asking us to approve this?
My timeline for the 6 segments, maybe we can go over that a little bit. The first segment that we hope to be able to move forward with, if I can get back to the map here on the screen, and I'll try to point it out with my little laser pointer here, is the North Hollywood segment, which is on the far right. That is going to be hopefully in construction by the end of 2014. Now, that is taking recycled water for Burbank, which will bring to your board a separate agreement at a later date. The other remaining 5 segments, we hope to start construction in those sometime in 2015. Obviously, we still have to design it and locate the resources, so we still have ample time to come out when the date gets closer to make sure that we hear all the concerns from the community and make sure that we're reaching all the affected neighbors in those areas.
I might add, Commissioner, that usually the way that these things work is when they're doing the environmental assessment, they're trying to look at kind of the large impacts, but it's very difficult on that scale to start getting down to you're going to block the driveway on my building or my business. What are you going to do about that? Or how are you going to get around this corner or something? So what we would normally do is, as we get closer to the construction, we will hold meetings with the community, and we could use your help, and we would welcome your help in getting the word out for those, and we'll do outreach. But that's where we end up doing some of the real nuts and bolts. How are we going to keep the driveways going? How do we affect parking? How do we make sure businesses have access? And that will come. It's at that level of detail. We don't usually address that in the environmental documentation.
Well, I have to say again, I think to expect people to go to a library and then to go through this and then have to email their comments by a certain date is really asking a lot of community. And I think the community reacts in a negative way when, after the fact, you come to them and say, this is what we're going to do. It's like, it's done already. It's like a fait accompli. And now you're saying, well, what are your comments? I think it's better to do that first. Let people know what you're going to do. Because then you'll have people on your side when you come to them in the planning stages.
Commissioner, if I could just speak to this in a little bit broader context. I understand your concern. I think we could potentially revisit on a going forward basis how we do our outreach. You can't design the specific plan with regard to a project until you've actually done design. You have a kind of a chicken and egg issue. But I think there probably could be some things that we do. It'll take more time, take more effort, take more expense to go out and have more people out in the public, have more public meetings, have more opportunities for discussion on some of these items to take those questions. And our experience has been just the nature of the beast is that people don't tend to come out to those meetings, but we can try to do more. I think we can. Your point, the fact we didn't work through BICA and some of
not
these,
BICA. I'm not talking about BICA.
I'm sorry, I didn't mention.
I'm talking about neighborhood councils.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Bank, I guess.
Bank. Yeah.
Bank. Sorry.
Yeah.
Slipped out.
Yeah.
Wrong way. But I guess the point being, I think we can do that. I think we can provide some additional information going forward. This project, our recycled water projects many of them are like this. They're long processes to get done. We're behind where we want to be on them. We're not where, we're trying to be consistent with what the mayor has asked on a policy perspective on what we can do in the recycled water. I would be concerned, just as, it is obviously your all's vote. I would be concerned if we were to slow this particular project down over this issue. I think we can do a better job in the future on these things, and I think as Mr. McDaniel indicated, as we go forward with respect to making certain people are aware of it, getting their input with respect to exactly how we do some of these things. We are going to work, as I explained, we are going to work with the schools, we are going to work with sensitive areas, we are going to work with the businesses on these things to do that. I would be concerned if we were to slow down the project with this to go out and restart this project. We would be talking to you sometime late next year.
Well, I disagree. I think that you need, if you could have someone come, I know that the ratepayer advocate has come to neighborhood council several times when there's something happen, and all 34 councils are represented. I mean, it's a one-stop shop, and I'm saying within, let's say, a month or two, you could speak to the neighborhood councils, and they could go back to their constituencies. I'm talking about 2 months, not a year. And I think it's the principle of this. I mean, let's, I think that we have to start doing things in a different way.
Commissioner, if I may intercede for a moment with respect to the timing issue, if you start doing that, you're reopening the CEQA clock. So it's not just a matter of going back and talking to some folks and just adding on that time. You're reopening a whole new clock. So it's not an issue where you can put it off for a week and meet with folks. You are starting the process. Especially this is part of the CEQA process, and the compliance that was done in accordance with CEQA, which you're asking for some additional work that's above and beyond CEQA. But for the CEQA clock, you will be restarting that clock potentially.
So what is the clock now? What is?
The action item is ready now. It has gone through the CEQA process. So if you start reopening the comment period,
why is it reopened as opposed to just
because
continuing?
it's closed. The comment period is closed.
Oh, because people had to respond by a certain
Under
date.
the CEQA process, there are certain dates that you have the opportunity to respond, and that time is passed. So by affording additional opportunity, you're reopening that clock. So I just want to make sure that you're aware that it's, from a CEQA standpoint, it's not as simple as having an additional meeting.
So what is involved then in that if you were to restart?
Chuck, what would your timing be on restarting the...
Well, if we were going to reinitiate the CEQA process, we've done a lot of the technical studies already, but it would require notification of a new public review period and comment period, including recirculating the document and then responding to comments received as a result of that, and the additional outreach, the meetings that you're talking about, and then putting together the final package. I don't know what it would be, 6-7 months maybe, if we really worked hard at it.
I have a suggestion, possibly, and I assume that would entail hundreds of thousands of dollars of cost, probably, or not?
I don't know if hundreds of thousands, but there would be tens of thousands, maybe 80.
Is it
100.
possible that Commissioner Barad can be briefed on this in terms of what was actually done to reach out to neighborhood councils before the next meeting, and we can put this over, or instead of doing this, reopening sounds like a fairly significant thing at this time, but I want to address her concerns as well.
There are also steps that you can take afterwards, as was suggested, in terms of additional outreach. Just because the mitigated neg deck is approved doesn't mean that you're prevented from doing further outreach. So you can approve the neg deck, and the department can still do further outreach to folks.
Mr. Brajevich, if possible, I'm just trying to give the options available to our commissioners there. Is it possible that they could adopt the mitigated negative deck? Well, it's always hard to say that fast, isn't it? And today, with the understanding that there will be some directed, and we would come back with a specific program to them as to how we will do that outreach so that the project moves forward, but we can give the commissioners comfort that there will be greater outreach. There'll be, and the most important thing out of this is, in my view, is to make certain, because having been involved with some of our much larger diameter projects that are much more difficult to done and have some very meaningful impacts in other cases, the real issue here is working with those local neighborhoods to make sure that we are aware of their concerns in the actual implementation of it, and that the mitigation is done in the most practical and helpful way that you possibly can.
Exactly. Thank you.
That's really, to me, is the thing. And if I could suggest, and if the commissioners would be willing to adopt it with a clear understanding that before we move at all on this, we're going to come back with that kind of a very specific plan, more outreach, input with respect to how we implement it, and then report back to this commission on that.
Yes.
If that would be acceptable to you, I know that's certainly something we would be more than happy to do.
Yeah, I appreciate that, yes.
And I would just want to make sure that By asking to do that, we're not questioning the adequacy of the outreach. I mean, we believe that it was done appropriately, and we're just asking for a little more. So I don't want to question at all what went into this. I'm sure that it was done with a lot of diligence and foresight and everything else.
What I would suggest in that regard then is that the board act to adopt the mitigated deck as presented, and then have an additional instruction that the department reach out to the impacted communities and advise them of the mitigation measures.
And if I could so suggest that also that we, prior to undertaking that we report back to the commission with respect to what that plan is and the feedback that we received on that.
So
is that a motion?
Yes. Well, one of you have to make the motion.
I don't know if I want to repeat what you said.
We'll have it with Barbara.
I think Barbara has probably captured that, or has a recording of that at least.
I'll make sure I get the wording, the exact wording.
Okay, with that amended verbiage, I move to move forward with the item.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Next item is item 19.
And I do have 3 speaker cards for item 19.
Bid number 470, rental bear trench shoring, traffic plates, and traffic control equipment.
Would you like to do the public speakers first, or?
Yes.
Okay. The first public speaker is Brian Yurtowski. Sorry if I mispronounced that. And please limit your comments to 2 minutes. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Brian Yurtowski. I am counsel for United Rentals North America, Inc. I'm here today with 2 of the managers, Michael Murray, branch manager for Baldwin Park, and Kevin Kramer, district sales manager. We're here today to oppose the award of contract under Spec 470 to Trench Plate. Yesterday, I submitted a letter protest to the board, and I wanted to inquire if the board had had the opportunity to review that. Then, understanding that, and I knew there was a closed session, I'll focus a little more specific instead of on the overall project. But as the commission is aware, United Rentals is the lowest bidder on this project by $6 million. United Rentals bid for this project, which is for plate shoring, traffic control, and traffic plates, was 10.3. The bidder that is recommended is Trench Plate at a bid of $16.3 million. When United Rentals was advised 2 days ago that although as low bidder, they were not receiving the award due to perceived technical deficiencies with the bid and the bid being deemed responsive, it was a surprise, particularly in light of what the focus of today's meeting has been on protecting ratepayers and looking to the public, the general public will, and that is the focus of public bidding. It's the first focus is on the public's interest. The second focus is on the bidding process itself to ensure it was fair. Mr. Nichols started out today's meeting with a discussion on ratepayers. So right now, the commission has a chance to show the ratepayers that not only what they say that they're on their side, they actually have the action to do so. By voting to accept, to reject Trench Plate's bid of $16 million and accept United Rentals' bid of $10 million, you're immediately saving the ratepayers $6 million, which from today's discussion could cover quite a few projects. Now, in the letter I laid out some of the law, but I mean basically the issue is this. A bid, even if there are some perceived technical difficulties with it, can still be held in compliance. And that is what United Rentals did. I addressed all the issues in detail, that there was an exception list, that there was a missing page, that we supplied the one line of information on another document, that there was one document incomplete, and we have no idea how that occurred. So what we're asking the board to do is to take a look at United Rentals' bid, to look at it in context. United Rentals has been the vendor on this project for over 6 years. When the department was our contract expired.
You wrap up your remarks, please.
May I have the time from the other speakers?
No.
No. Are the others?
The other speakers are representatives of United Rentals who would give me that time.
Good. Okay.
If you want to if they want to give their time to you, then go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. And I'm nearing a close here, too. But what I'm suggesting is that in light of the circumstances of this situation, when considered in totality, considered that United Rentals has been the vendor, considered that United Rentals bid is $6 million, it's like 60%. This is not a bid where it's 10% or 15%. Something's wrong here with the bidding process. The next bidder, which was also technically thrown out, was for $11 million. That's in the range of bids. It's 10% difference. Here it's $6 million on a technicality where the focus should be not to throw out bids that are beneficial to the general good. The focus should be on the commission and the board and the department to accept bids that are beneficial to the public. And we believe that United Rentals' bid is such a bid, that it saves substantial amount of money, particularly in times when money is important. And we respectfully request that the board vote against this measure and accept United Rentals. Thank you for your time. And if you have any questions, I or any of the members of United are willing to answer them.
Commissioners, thank you for your comments.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Thank you, Commissioners.
So we'll have a staff presentation on this, Mr.
Yes.
General Manager.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Jonathan Leung, Water Distribution Division.
Gwendolyn Williams, Director of Supply Chain Services.
So this contract provides shoring and plate rental equipment and delivery and maintenance that's needed for public safety and the safety of our employees when they're working in excavations and open trenches. Currently, we have plates deployed in over 30 different work sites throughout the department and throughout the city. It's utilized both by the water system and power system. A number of critical projects that are being ongoing with compliance schedules, supply and reliability projects are supported by this contract. So regarding the procurement process, I'm going to have Gwen comment on that.
Okay. One of the fundamental principles of bidding is that all bidders be given a level, equal playing field in order in which to compete. We received 3 bids. We reviewed each of those bids to determine whether they were responsive and responsible bidders. United Rentals was the lowest bidder, but they were not responsive and responsible. One of the things you may not do with a bid, you can do it with an RFP, but not with a bid, is you may not take exceptions to the terms that are laid out in the solicitation. They took exceptions to 2 significant items, one of them being indemnification, which is major, and the other being the option to renew. So that was the primary basis for which we found them non-responsive. There were some other issues that they were non-responsive related to Form 55 CEC in terms of indicating their subcontractors over $100,000. They indicated they had none. They did have one for $108,000. The second bidder was non-responsive because they did not meet the good faith effort requirement, which then required us to go to the third bidder, who was higher. We have a strategy to address that issue, and I'll let Jonathan talk about that.
Yes, in the interest of balancing the operational needs, continuing progress on our public health projects, being able to install new services for our customers, we would like to continue with the award of the contract, but recognizing some of the price signals that we got on this bid, we think it would be in the most best interest of the ratepayers that we do re-advertise this shortly, maybe within a month period or 6 weeks. And following the whole process, we could be back before this board if those prices are favorable within a time frame of maybe 4 to 5 months.
Okay, but we do have an operational need to award this bid today, and we would move forward with doing that if the board so approves it, and plan on only spending the minimum 25%, and then, as Jonathan stated, going back out to bid.
And one point of clarification, for that first year, if we're looking at the 1 year loan, that's about a delta of about $1.8 million. If we're only spending about 25% of that contract, that's roughly $450,000 in the extra. But
I agree with your recommendation in that, we need, because time is of the essence, we need to grant this contract to somebody. And unfortunately, protocol wasn't followed correctly, even though United Rentals had familiarity working with us in the past. So I think this ties into the issue of just trying to create a clearer procurement process. But the taxpayers, the ratepayers' money is very important too. So I really appreciate your commitment to start rebidding this within the next few weeks. And I hope at that time that United Rentals will participate again, and there won't be, the errors that occurred with their last bid.
I want to echo that. I think that I would hope that United Rentals continues to see that the doors open here to future bids, given their history with the department. So I'll make a motion to approve based on the staff recommendation.
Do we need to memorialize the department's commitment to start rebidding this, or not necessary?
No, you can accept it, understand what they said, and they're going to...
Okay. With that commitment in mind from your part and the board's, I move forward with this item.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item 19 is approved. Item 20, water and system support, purchase of real property located at 11759 Van Owen Street in North Hollywood.
Reynaldo Desmond, Manager of Real Estate.
Susan Rogani.
Hello.
Hi. The property, we need to purchase the property to support the river supply conduit improvement Upper Reach project, units 5 and 6. The property is located in North Hollywood's an 11-unit apartment building in the intersection of Van Owen and Morella Avenue. And this, how we reached here is that basically over a year ago, we were looking at this property, and the technical team looked at it and see if there was any way they could avoid the property. But after much iteration, it was decided that, and recommendation was we couldn't. And so we have reached out to the owner, talked to them, and got the property appraised, made an offer, got a counter offer that seemed reasonable, and so we're recommending approval.
Questions?
Comments? Questions?
I move we support.
Second?
Hearing no objections, motion passes.
Thank you.
Next item is, thank you very much. Next item is 21, sole source contract for advanced customer support services.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Sharon Grove. I'm with the Customer Service Division.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. George Raphael with the Customer Service Division.
Cliff Bing, Assistant Director of IT.
This request is for a 3-year contract of up to $7 million to support both our intranet and intranet sites. We, as you can see by the board packet, we gave you a chronology of sort of the history of putting in a more functional internet for our customers. And this is to continue to increase the functionality to stay up with other peer utility websites to make sure that we're providing our customers with the most self-serve options available.
So with this, it'll be, the services provided, this will be not consulting services, but advisory. So it'll be assisting our team to develop the skill sets that we need to be able to maintain and operate these in the best way possible. And there's these are products that are going through tremendous development cycles. So it'll help us to ensure that we're mitigating our costs in the future from minimizing customization and such, and taking part of best practices that are used by other utilities and other companies. Through Oracle's recommendations. And another portion of this is also for training to ensure our staff goes through the technical training necessary across these products.
I'm sorry, how does this differ from the training that we invested in originally when we were transitioning the site? I believe that we had approved for some resources to go towards training. So how does this differ?
So when we first launched the website in April 2012, we did have staff going through. We did those on an individual basis, which in contracting, and they were through Oracle. So it's similar training to that, except those were done as one-offs. This gives us a vehicle where we can schedule and get staff the training necessary in a quicker fashion. But it's very similar, and since we've gone live, we're already 3 versions behind, so there's a rapid development cycle that this will allow the team to stay up to speed as these products mature.
I have a question. Is this this Oracle system, was this in place when we just the last couple of weeks have had the problems with billing and customer service?
So the ones that we're specifically going to be focused on in this contract are different than the billing suite. So Oracle has a vast number of products, and the ones that we're utilizing here for the website and so on are ones that Oracle's acquired over the last 4 or 5 years. So they are related in the sense of customer service, the self-service capabilities, and these integrate with our billing system. But as far as the core issues, they're unrelated, or separate, I should say.
How does this fee compare to the type of support that competitors of Oracle would propose? I know that we're committed to Oracle, but how do the rates that Oracle's proposing compare to their competitors' rates?
Okay. I think that's a difficult question to answer because it's consulting services, and depends on what you're asking the consultant to do. The types of services that we're getting through this particular contract, you can't go to somebody else for, because Oracle, being the manufacturer of the product, they have proprietary knowledge of how those products are developed, and that's what, by having this in place, we get access to that proprietary knowledge. So it makes it very difficult for us to compare what it would cost for the equivalent.
So just to be clear, you couldn't hire like a Deloitte, anybody else to train our staff at a more cost-effective rate?
You could hire Deloitte or there are many companies that train on the Oracle product. So yes, you could hire other people to do that kind of off-the-shelf type of training. Part of the reason why we have advanced consulting services is because it gets us access to higher levels of information that the general trainers wouldn't have access to. And that's why we have this one with Oracle directly.
I'm sorry, what were you going to say?
I was just going to add that in my experience, this is a bit like the Gillette Razor Blade business model, where having bought the handle, you'd need to buy the blades. And the company knows this and uses it to its competitive advantage on the front end. But then there's an escalation over time of the ancillary services that are necessary to really get the full value out of your investment. And a worthy exercise to inform yourself of the trajectory that you're on is to collect some information about their consulting services and support services for installs of this module with other utilities, and then you'll have, I think, a clearer idea of each increment as it comes along, instead of just looking at like one piece of their business model.
Thank you for that. That being said, why didn't we negotiate potentially a better rate when we negotiated the original contract with Oracle, knowing that we were doing this major transition, knowing that we were going to need training moving forward from 2012, 2013? Why wasn't this, why couldn't we have leveraged a more thorough, comprehensive contract with them originally? Now I kind of feel like we're stuck in a way without a lot of leverage.
There were discussions during this process. So our previous Oracle Advanced customer service was expired in 2011, and we've been in negotiations through then. We did put a pause, but to fully assess what our needs are. But during the process of acquiring the other, whether it's CCNB and making our upgrades on the website, we were in constant negotiations with Oracle, and we do have a very competitive rate that would stand up against other consulting services. However, these are advisory services that assist us based on looking how we can best utilize our products and how we can ensure that we're mitigating our costs going forward. So when we look at other consulting services which are developing something for us, this is kind of a different model to ensure that our staff is able to best support these systems and we can get the most out of these products by expanding our self-service capabilities, improving our self-service, our online customer services, and so on.
Commissioner Noonan, I would also like to add that one of the values of working with the vendor's consulting arm is that the other consultants want to begin the process of customizing the product. And every time there's a problem and they can't train for it, they have a new contract they want to actually do what's called the workaround. And the workaround process is a very slippery slope. So one of the benefits of working with the vendors, perhaps not the best price of its competitors, is that they do know what the product is capable of. They will fulfill full training of that product. And it really isn't best practices to keep building perpetually, because that is what the consultants on the ground most want, is to get another project authorized and built. So it's a complex set of tensions once you've committed to a vendor.
Thank you.
I'd only say that when we have sole source contracts, regardless generally of their nature, unless it's just a fungible item that we, in which case it probably wouldn't be sole source. But I would just say that the ratepayer advocate suggestion of having benchmarking for what other public power entities or IOUs are paying for similar suites of whatever the service is, I think would be helpful in guiding us to maybe not make an apples to apples direct comparison, but something to give us some sense that we are doing more than just capitulating to whatever the vendor wants. So I think that maybe that direction, but I think that if anybody else has any questions on this, is there a motion to approve?
I echo your thoughts. I think that would be helpful in the future. Thank you. With that said, so moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item, item 22. Letter of intent, 2-level premium for electrical mechanic supervisor and senior electrical mechanic supervisor full-time trainers of approved structured training programs.
Good afternoon. Thomas Simonovsky from Human Resources.
And I'm Mike Koya from the Power System, Assistant General Manager.
Afternoon.
So this item essentially is an amendment to the current MOU with IBW regarding the supervisory blue-collar unit MOU. And essentially it basically adds to an existing provision that's been in the MOU for approximately 13 years. Right now there's a trainer premium that is provided to the electrical mechanic supervisor and senior electrical mechanic supervisor classes. Currently there are 12 positions that are available for use for electrical mechanic supervisor and 1 position for the senior electrical mechanic supervisor. And essentially this agreement increases the number of positions from 12 to 13 for the electrical mechanic supervisor class and from 1 to 2 positions from senior electrical mechanic supervisor. The reason why it's needed is because over the last several years the power system has really expanded its apprenticeship formal training programs. These are programs that take 2 years, 3 years, even 4 years to effectively train new hires. And we've found that it's been more efficient and more effective to utilize in-house experienced workers that can effectively know the system and transfer that knowledge to these apprentices. So if there's any questions that you'd like us to ask, we are more than happy to.
I'd just like to echo a little bit about the expansion and the need is that, so like Mr. Nichols had mentioned, we have a lot of pending retirements. So many of our training programs, we're looking to double the class sizes, or where we had 1 class a year, we're now going to 2 or 3 classes a year. And then in this classification, we're also expanding it because it's the base training needed to train our new classification of wind plant technician. And we're also using these classifications to help train our utility pre-craft trainees, which are feeder into all of our training classes. And that program's expanded since we incepted it in 2011 from 25 positions now to 100 positions.
Thank you. I think that when Commissioner Levine, and I can't speak for the President, but when I first talked about this with him, I had very little understanding about the safety and training programs. I just have one question about this now, because I was concerned that this somehow related to the JSI issue. Is it? Or we're not funding anything related to the JSI.
This is
no.
Totally
this
power
is just
system.
In-house DWP
Power system
training.
funding. That's correct. We're part of the blue bar there.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, I do. All right, so are you training in safety? Is that?
Yeah, these are really for more training positions and safety positions, but part of their responsibility during the year, we have to train all our employees with annual refresher training for the electrical system, high voltage. And they are also not only trainers for our formal apprenticeship programs, but they also do annual refresher training where we have to bring everybody in for...
But it involves safety.
Yes.
Obviously.
And obviously all of our training is safety is integral to...
Yeah, so I just think it's interesting that after having that long discussion about the Training Institute, that this is an in-house program that we're asked now to fund.
And these have been formally our in-house training programs for our apprenticeships that have been done within the department.
So now, it says that, let's see, the Super Blue electrical mechanic supervisor, $6,449.41. That's for one person?
That's correct.
And you can take one, I wasn't clear, do you have 12 and you can take one more?
Yeah, we're trying to expand from the existing approval, one more.
So you can take
one more in each of those classes.
One more in each of those, and that's where you got the total of 13,000 and change. Okay. I wanted to ask you about the retroactive. Is that because it's 4 years? Somewhere I saw that it's retroactive.
Well, for one of the positions, because we started one of our big programs is the utility pre-craft training program, and that's a whole new program, and we had to put somebody in place to start helping administer and coordinate that, and that's why we're trying to, cover that that effort that was done that
So
started
their
last
pay
year.
will go back? No.
For one position, it would go back.
For one position?
Yeah, the senior
All right. And are they full-time trainers?
Yes,
or-
they're full-time trainers.
Okay. And then, so then that becomes, that 5.5% gets added to their base pay.
Yes, that's correct.
Is that correct?
Correct.
Is that considered a bonus?
Well, what we call a training premium, so that the premium is like a bonus, and and this is what we've had in place from, like Tom had said, for many years, over a decade, that, again, these trainers and people that are selected as trainers are those that, again, you can be a good worker, but you can't always train people, and you can't always relate to students and know how to teach people differently.
But
and
it
these
adds
people are-
5.5% to their base
Right.
pay.
But that's tied to the position. So if they stop training, if
Yeah.
they go back to the field,
Oh.
that stays with the position.
Does that happen?
We have people, we have trainers that promote, they leave the position, and we have to backfill those positions. So that's what you're approving today is for that position of training.
Okay.
Thank you. I just want to clarify. We're talking about paying that one individual retroactively, not that entire category of
Correct.
employees.
Correct.
Okay. With that, I move to move forward. I make a motion to move forward with the item.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is item 23, financial services, setting of the incremental rate stabilization account, target of the incremental electric rate ordinance.
I'm Phil Leiber, Chief Financial Officer. I'll be presenting this item and the next one really together because they are related, and I think a single explanation might provide better context for it. Both of these memorandums relate to the operation of our rate stabilization account. This was established many years ago in principle, and the account helps us maintain compliance with certain financial metrics that are very important to the rating agencies and our ability to meet other bond and other covenant requirements. It also can help us avoid rate spikes from year to year. So what's happening in both of these requests is the first item sets a larger maximum size for this account. Presently, it's established at an amount not to exceed $115 million, and we would increase that limit to $175 million. The second item actually deposits additional funds into the account, bringing the funding level up from 113 to about 117 million. So it's not fully funded, so you might ask, why do we set it at 175? That would give us the ability to fund it more in future years, but we don't have the resources to bring it all the way up to that level today. Why is this account important? It serves as a shock absorber to help buffer financial changes from year to year. The two ways that it really helps us is we can make a withdrawal from the account either prospectively or retroactively. Prospectively, if we look ahead and see that we have particular rate pressure next year that would cause us to have our rates spike, we can make a withdrawal from this account to help temper that to some degree. Now, we can't eliminate rate increases, we can't offset the rate increases because there just isn't enough money in this account. But to the extent we were trying to smooth things a bit, this account does provide some limited ability to do that. But more importantly, the account lets us look back retroactively where we're coming up to the completion of a year. Maybe we had to absorb some additional expenses. Maybe our revenues were a little bit lower than we thought they were going to be. We can make a withdrawal from the account and, again, help kind of smooth out our financial performance. So this increase and the additional deposit is highly recommended because as we look ahead to the next couple of years, we do foresee really a rockier road ahead, and having a larger shock absorber, so to speak, will be helpful to kind of buffer some of those bumps. One of the things we are facing is there's a new accounting pronouncement that takes effect next year that's going to make it much harder for us to determine what our pension expenses are going to be prospectively. There's going to kind of be a surprise element to it because it's going to depend on market valuations in the fund, and our expense is going to be based on that. So you really can't know until you had the investment performance come in. So having a larger account will help us buffer some of that volatility and thereby help us maintain compliance with some of the financial metrics that we face. So with that, we think it's warranted to increase the size to 175 and make the deposit of $4.4 million, which is as much as we could spare from the last year's financial performance, to deposit into this account.
I have a question. To go from 115 million to 175 million, why so much of an increase? That's more than 50%.
Well, we think that looking ahead, we need a much larger account than we have today. Some of the volatility that we're likely to see in these pension expenses could be very significant. This new accounting pronouncement hasn't come into effect yet. We don't know exactly what the additional volatility will be, but we suspect we could see swings in our expenses well into the tens of millions of dollars in a given year. So a much larger buffer is going to be important. Now, we're not funding it up to that $175 million presently because we don't have the surplus funds to do that. But in the next couple of years, if we do have some available revenues, we could deposit it much closer to that 175.
Okay, and the word in 24, this is to defer 8.2 million.
I should
the word
point out,
defer, what is it? What does that mean? Does that mean you're putting that into the rate stabilization account?
Yes, I should point out two things. There was a last-minute adjustment in our financial results for fiscal year 12-13. We originally thought we'd have a little over $8 million to defer, but the final recommendation is for only $4.4 million. So I should point out that the agenda needed to be corrected on item 24. It's not $8.2 million. It's $4.4 million.
Right. So what do you mean by defer? Transfer over or reallocate?
Yes. So with respect to that term, defer, without this account, any revenues that we would collect in a given year get recognized as revenue for accounting purposes in that year. There is an accounting pronouncement that does allow the board to set those aside and recognize them in a subsequent year instead. And that's what we're doing with this account. When we're depositing these revenues in the account, we don't recognize them in that year. We instead recognize them in our financials only when they're withdrawn. So we're deferring recognition of that revenue.
Okay, thank you.
Council, do we need to do anything with that change, or can we just, okay.
I have a comment.
Of the 8.2 to 4.2.
The chair. Ms. Chair, over here.
Yeah.
In response to the comments about the size of it at $60 million, it's my understanding, and I'm sure Phil will correct me if I'm wrong, that the financial metrics that they're planning around have a target that drives a lot of the metrics that are relevant to ratings for net income, which is exceedingly small given the total revenue. So it's about $50 million. So the amount of the change here is approximately the size of the net income target that the models are built around. But just to recall to your memory, if you haven't seen it, that the top line, the revenue line, is closer to $3 billion, and that's a pretty small target to be trying to hit exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner?
Yeah, I make a motion to move forward with both items.
Are we doing the two together, 23 and 24?
Yeah, she said both items,
Okay.
23 and 24.
Second.
Motion passes. Thank you. I think there's one speaker for item 26. One
Yes,
speaker for
item
item
26.
One,
Are we at 25?
We are going to
I'm sorry.
25.
We did 23 and 24 together, right?
Yes, so now we're on
25.
So we're on 25. Okay, 25.
Real estate enabling agreements?
Yes. Item 25, enabling agreements for real estate acquisition, relocation, and property management services.
Raynon Ledesma, Manager of Real Estate.
Craig Luna, Power System Planning and Development.
Thank you. Commissioners, what we're asking for here is we're proposing to adopt some enabling agreements to hire as-needed licensed real estate agents and contractors to support acquisition, relocation, and property management services to support the Barron Ridge Transmission Project and other projects that may be coming up in the future. The contracts are for 3 years. We're recommending 8 firms be approved, and they will be in those 3 functions. Some will do acquisition services, some will do relocation, some will do property management, and some will do a combination of those. And the idea is that since they're enabling agreements, there's a dollar max of $4.5 million, and then each time we have a task that we have, like for example, managing the 11-unit apartment building that you approved earlier, if we deem it appropriate, then we would bid that out as a task order request to those that are on the property management column on page 2 of the board letter, and then those would submit bids based on the scope of work that we put, and then we would make a selection based on those, based on the responses that we get back. So each time we would have a request, then they would be done in almost like a mini bid proposal each time.
Commissioner in charge of real estate.
Well, I guess my first question is, the entities that you outlined, these are considered preferred vendors, and how would you select each one for each requirement? Also, given the 75-mile length that we're focusing on and addressing 600 parties in the process, how are we going to not lose leverage in that marketplace, considering that people may want to hold out for a higher amount, knowing that there's a desire for us to be on that transmission line road?
So in answering your first question, Commissioner, when we put out the original RFP, we said that we would want entities to answer who would do one or more of those services. Then as each proposal came in, they identified which of the 3 or more than, or whichever one or more that they were, felt that they were qualified to do. Then they would submit their proposals, we evaluated those, and then we kind of made a short list, and we interviewed those for each of the services to be sure that we were comfortable with who we would recommend. We had those interviews, came up with the questions, and then based on those interviews, then these are the ones that we'd recommend. So in each column, for example, acquisition services, there are 4 entities there. So if we had an acquisition task, then when we come up with those, then we would circulate it for those 4 firms because they identify themselves as being able to do that work, and then we've confirmed that, yes, they can do that work. If it's for relocation, then it would be those firms, and the same thing for property management. In answer to your second question, the way we're going to manage those numbers that you mentioned about the Barron Ridge is we're going to be putting them in groups, much like we've done with the appraisals, where we're not doing them like one at a time with different firms. We're grouping them where they make sense. So, for example, when we get the appraisals back and we're ready to make an acquisition or offer, so let's say 50 parcels, then we would group 50. And then we'd put that out to the acquisition firms and then get the responses back, evaluate those, and then make a recommendation. And then when we get the next grouping, we would do the same thing.
And are the groups, are they owned by the same entity, or how would you negotiate with?
Part of what we've looked at in doing groups is, yes, if there's common ownership and it makes sense. Part of it is, depending on where they are in proximity. So the appraisals did that initially with looking at, well, if, party A owns, 11 parcels, if they're close enough where it made sense to put them in the same grouping, we did that. But if there's one, let's say, way up by Barron Ridge and one way down by LA County, it may not have made sense in that sense or in that case. But to the extent that we can group them so we deal with the same ownerships or the same people at the same time, we've done that as part of the grouping process.
Okay, and then how will these entities work with your real estate group, and how was the estimated $4.5 million arrived at? Are we talking mainly commissions, consulting fees, flat fees?
Each of the proposers put in a schedule of fees. When we originally came up with the estimate, we figured, well, how much do we think it would cost based on previous, we haven't had a project of this size in like 25 years. So when we looked at, current acquisitions we've done, we did a smaller one, like 27 easements we purchased in Burbank, for example. We looked at what we thought those fees would be And then when we look at how many of those we think would be bundled together, then we have a good idea. So we already know what their prices would be based on what they've submitted, but they would get the opportunity each time we have a task to be able to look at their, and say we're going to bid, whatever, a certain dollar amount for these 50, for example. And then the other question?
Yeah, are there certain people within your real estate division that are going to be focused just on this endeavor and working with these parties, or how will you partner up with these third parties?
Right. So what we've done, or what we're going to be doing, especially on this one, is that we're going to have certain staff that will be the contract administrators for this contract. So all of the task order requests are going to be handled by internal staff. When they get reviewed, those will be internal staff. And then when then there will be a coordination effort, as you can imagine, with a couple hundred transactions going on at one time. So our plan is for the acquisition services probably to put out an early task request for like a project manager that would handle the day-to-day, basically keeping track of where all the different transactions are, and that will be overseen by internal staff. We've already created a database that will track all of these different transactions in their various stages, so that we will know at any given time how many offers have been made, how many acceptances we've had, how many are going towards condemnation. Because as you already have adopted the EIR, we already know where the line's going to be. We already know what parcels they're going to be. So now it's going to be more of a collaborative and coordinated effort to make sure that we're keeping track of all the parcels, and then those that run its course and then end up hopefully more in the voluntary column. That's what we hope for. But if we can't, then based on the fact that this board and the council adopted the project, then we would be able to condemn if necessary.
And how are you, just out of curiosity, how are you going to source the project manager?
We will put in the task order requests among the ones that are in the acquisition column. So we will have a consultant who will take care of the day-to-day, basically keeping track of where it is. And then we'll have to, we had a similar issue with the appraisal one. So there's only certain things they can do. Like, for example, they cannot be involved with the task order requests and developing those. They can only be involved with anything after we bid it out and review it and make a recommendation. So all of that will be handled by department staff. But once we've already identified who it's going to be, then one of their tasks will be to keep track of it and basically be the conduit by which they would be in contact with the different firms who have been assigned each of the task order requests, and keeping track of, what's happened with this file, with that file. And then staff would be the one to review as those packages come back, like for payment, for example. So if a firm says, okay, I've completed X number of files, then those will be submitted with invoices. Internal staff would review those before approving for payment.
Okay.
Any further comments? Is there a motion to approve?
Okay, second?
Motion approving the contract. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item 26.
And I do have one speaker for item 26.
Before, I've been informed that we probably will want to defer until the next meeting, item, what is it, 28B?
28B, 2. We had it as a filed item, and I guess we were intending to do a presentation on it today as an informational item, because I think it's a financial tool that that we'll be using going forward, that ultimately the board will need to take an action on. I think the meeting's gone on quite a long time today.
Do you want to defer both of the informational items, or is the first one necessary also?
I don't know that we were planning on it. We actually weren't perfectly clear that we were going to give a presentation on 28B2. We weren't really planning on doing a presentation on any of the other filed items.
Okay. I just wanted to mention that if there's anybody here waiting, is anybody here waiting to present on either of those?
No,
28?
I don't think so.
No? Okay. Okay, well, let's just move to 26 then.
Okay, do you want to hear the public speaker?
Yes.
First? Okay. The public speaker is Cliff Ward.
I apologize, but no comment.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you.
Item
We've
26.
We've done the presentation last time, Commissioners. We've gone through details. If you have any other questions, we can answer.
I don't. Does anybody else? Then I'll make a motion to approve bid number whatever, construction of underground conduit and substructures for the scattergood Olympic Cable A, item 26.
Second?
Any opposed?
No.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. We've already had the discussion of item 27, item 28. Is there?
Did you want to just file the 28A?
I'm not sure what the procedure is.
Yeah.
So if you can help me out here,
to have it
counsel.
filed. If the GM doesn't have any presentation on it,
Right.
then you would just move to
If
accept
there
them
are,
as
if there are
filed.
any questions, typically on these items, if there are any questions that the board members have on something, we're happy to end any, we have.
Do we have to vote on item
No.
28 at
No.
all? Okay.
Just accept it as filed.
All right. Item 29, is there any?
Item 29, you had a question about, we were talking about the color coding of what it means when we had the numbers turn in red.
Red lines.
So in your report, we put the legend, basically, what we will turn the numbers red to signify the changes from the last report you had. So if you see a number turn red color, and we kind of put the description and the legend, so you know that that number has been changed from the last time. So that change has been made on your report.
Thank you. Any questions on item 29? I think that's
So,
it, and we can...
Yeah, we'll recess. Actually, we will recess in a closed session at this point to address the remaining closed session items and then report any reportable action in accordance with Section 549571 of the Government Code.
Okay, does anybody want to make a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second. All opposed? Passed.
And if you would like, expect, there are a few people here that might be hungry.
Absolutely.
And if you wanted to, if you want, we could also move to back to the other board, or we could wait to close it down here. Whichever way, but we could stop and have a bite first.
Let's take a 15, 20-minute break.
We'll do it in the executive.
And we'll reconvene the executive session back there.
Great.